Dear students and viewers, good afternoon everyone. This is Ridwan, your teacher of English, and I've come here today with a very important topic. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about transformation of simple, complex and compound sentence. Now you are probably thinking what is transformation or how to answer the questions relating to the topic. Okay. So as today's lesson is about how we can change a complex sentence into simple one, or how to change a complex sentence into compound one, and vice versa, I'll be explaining everything in details. But before I go into details, I think I need to tell you what things you should learn to better understand the topic. Though most of the students have difficulty with the topic, today's lesson is not very short. It is somewhat complicated, as you know. As most of the students have difficulty with the topic, they don't understand the basics of transformation, and so they can't answer the questions in the exams. But I think, and I strongly believe, that today's topic would be much easier for you, because as you know, in my last two videos, for your better understanding, in my last two videos I talked about simple, complex and compound sentence in details. I discussed their definitions, I discussed their identifications. It means how to identify different types of sentences. Most importantly, I discussed their formations, how to structure them. And as you know, in order to help you to better understand the topic, I made the second video on the difference between finite and non-finite verb. I think you must have seen that. Now let's start the topic by talking about the lessons we learned from the previous videos. First of all, I'll tell you what is transformation. Transformation is the method of transforming from one sentence into another according to grammatical structure without changing the meaning. Very quickly, we have got two features of transformation from this definition. The first one, in terms of transformation, we are not allowed to change the meaning and the sense. The meaning and the sense of the sentence must not be changed. We will have to change the structure. We will have to change their structure. We will have to either exclude some words or include some words, and thus we make changes. Okay, let's take some examples. The first example, for example, I know his name. I know his name. This is a simple sentence, right? To make it complex sentence, if I say this in complex sentence, I could say, I know what his name is. I know what his name is. Here I have included some words, and this is now a complex sentence. I know what his name is. Here I know his name is, I have not changed the meaning or the sense. I have just changed their structure. Okay, let's take another example. An industrious boy will succeed in life. This is a simple sentence, right? And if we let's make it a complex sentence, or let's say this in a complex sentence. An industrious boy will succeed in life. A boy who is industrious will succeed in life. Here the meaning or the sense is the same as before. Okay, now I've told you what transformation is. Now let's talk about complex sentence. how you can identify a complex sentence. A complex sentence must include a subordinating conjunction that introduces the subordinate clause. And do remember the most common subordinating conjunctions, including though. The most common subordinating conjunctions are though, although, even though, even if, that, so that, in order that, before, after, till, until, lest, providing that, provided that, as if, as though. These are the most commonly used subordinating conjunctions. And in my last video, I talked about one of my favorite acronyms, IUBISTA. If you can remember IUBISTA, I think it would be easy. It would be easy for you to remember the most commonly used subordinating conjunctions. So, or you can say a complex sentence is just a sentence that has a principal clause. Every clause begins with a subject and verb, a principal clause, and one or more subordinate clauses begins with a subordinating conjunction. Though he is poor, he is happy. This is a complex sentence. Then let's talk about compound sentence. A compound sentence must include coordinating conjunction. You know what coordinating conjunctions are. Fanboys will help you to remember the coordinating conjunctions. And a simple sentence. How you can identify, let's see how you can identify a simple sentence. A simple sentence does not contain any subordinating conjunctions or coordinating conjunctions, any conjunctions. No conjunctions a simple sentence contain. Then now in today's lesson, I'm going to show you three very important rules of transformation. Transformation. The complex sentence I'm going to change into simple word compound contains though, although, or even though. Even though is also possible. Though, although, even though. Though, although, even though. We use though, although, even though to show contrast, to express two contrasting ideas. Though, although, even though, and we can use these words interchangeably, but there's a grammatical difference. For example, though, although, even though. Though, although, or even though is always followed by clause. We must use a clause after though, although, or even though. A clause means, a clause is a group of words. I'm repeating the definition. Clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. Here verb means finite verb. So after though, although, or even though, we must use a clause. Though, although, even though are subordinating conjunctions, and these introduce subordinate clause. Then, despite or in spite of, as these are prepositions, these are not conjunctions, we use despite, after despite or in spite of, as these are prepositions, we use either pronoun based on the context. We use either pronoun or noun phrase. Gerund, it means verb plus ing. When do we use gerund? When you find no specific noun form of the verb, then you have to use gerund of the verb. Then there's another option. using despite or in spite of, and but we want this this formation in this class. We could say despite the fact that plus clause, in spite of the fact that plus clause. Then in simple sentence, the phrase has to start with either despite or in spite of, and the compound sentence, the two simple sentences will be connected by either but or yet. Okay, now I think it's time to change the complex sentence into simple one, and you can easily understand what I've said so far. Though he is poor, he is happy. Though he is poor, he is happy. I quite like this example because actually when I was a student and when I began to learn this topic, the first example I came across is this one. Though he is poor, he is happy. This is a complex sentence, right? So to make it simple sentence, we have to go through some procedures. The first one, we have to make this complex sentence. We have to make this subordinate clause a phrase, and the phrase has to begin with either despite or in spite of. Okay, I'm using here in spite of. You can use despite also. In spite of. Okay, you have to omit though, or although, or even though. Even though is also possible. There you can see even though also. Then in spite of. Okay, in place of subordinate conjunction though, we have to use in spite of, or we can use despite also, but never use of after despite. Always remember that. In spite of, then as here says subject, if we use subject, then we have to use the possessive adjective of the pronoun. The possessive adjective of the pronoun. What's the possessive adjective of he? His. Okay, then he changes to his. In spite of his, we know that this is a possessive adjective, and after this, as this is noun modifier, we have to use noun. So as there's no specific noun form of be verb, it would be being. His being. Okay, then in spite of his being, am is was word changes to being. Then after be verb we use adjective, so it would be in spite of his being poor. In spite of his being poor, put comma, he is happy. We will not make any changes for the principal clause. The principal clause should remain unchanged. He is happy. Now this is a simple sentence. In spite of his being poor, he is happy. There's another option. You could write in spite of or in spite of. Okay, we have omitted though, although, or even though, and we have used in spite of. Then now we are not using the subject, so in spite of it is also possible in spite of being poor. In spite of being poor, he is happy. It's also possible. Here we have not used the possessive adjective. Then or in spite of his, now we are not using be verb. We are not using be verb, as this is possessive adjective. So it should change into noun form. No, this is not the okay. Poor needs to be changed into noun form. What's the noun form of poor? Poverty. In spite of his poverty, comma, he is happy. It's also possible. In spite of his poverty, he is happy. Poor is adjective, poverty is noun. Poverty is noun. In spite of his poverty, in spite of word despite plus possessive adjective, then noun form. We have omitted being here, be verb, where you can write in spite of poverty. In spite of poverty, comma, he is happy. We have omitted possessive adjective here. Okay, let's revise once the four options. In spite of his being poor, he is happy. Then you can write in spite of being poor, he is happy. In spite of his poverty, he is happy. Or in spite of poverty, he is happy. Here, so you can change this complex sentence into simple one in these four ways. You can change the complex sentence into simple one. In spite of, always remember you must use of after in spite of. Don't forget that. After in spite, use of. But when you use despite in place of in spite of, then it would be despite his being poor, he is happy. Or despite being poor, he is happy. Here his has been left out. The word despite his poverty, despite poverty. Okay, now I think it's now been clear and you can understand. Now it has to be changed into compound sentence. We know that a compound sentence, in a compound sentence, we actually join two simple sentences or two independent clauses with a coordinating conjunction. And here, as we use these subordinating conjunctions, this preposition or this coordinating conjunction, we use these words interchangeably. Then here in the compound sentence we will use but, or, yet. So let's make the complex compound sentence. Compound. Okay. As usual, though has to be left out. In place of though, we are just making this subordinate clause an independent clause. So independent clause does not contain any conjunctions. This is a simple sentence. So though would be left out. It would be he is. It would be he is poor. He is poor. And in place of comma, you can use comma, no problem. In place of comma, we say in place of comma use but, or, yet. But, or, yet. But the word coordinating conjunction but is most often we use coordinating conjunction but. but he is poor, but he is happy. Okay, where you can write he is poor but happy. But happy. Here we can leave out he and the be verb, because here the subject is the same and verb is the same, so you can leave out the second subject and the second verb. He is poor but happy. Now it's now been compound sentence. Now let's do a little practice. Okay, I'm giving you an example. Okay, I'm telling you a complex sentence. Though he tried hard, he failed the course. Though he tried hard, he failed the course. Let's make this simple first. Though he tried hard, he failed the course. Though he tried hard, in place of though we are using despite word in spite of to make it compound, to make it simple. In spite of his trying hard, he failed the course. Or you can write in spite of trying hard, he failed the course, or in spite of his trying hard, he failed the course. Then okay, you have to remember these formations, and the complex sentence I've shown you today has though, although, or even though, and in place of though, although, and even though, to make the complex sentence simple, we are using despite word in spite of. We are using these interchangeably, and in the compound sentence, to make these complex and simple sentence compound, we are using coordinating conjunctions but, or, yet, and before the coordinating conjunctions we are using a simple sentence, and after the coordinating conjunction we are using a simple word independent clauses, and the two independent clauses are joined by a coordinating conjunction, and that is but, or, yet. Okay, I think you understand that topic. You have understood, and it's now been clear. Thank you all. That's all for now. Thank you.